Rev up your engines!
All right, GM released its third quarter sales numbers. And whoa, this is the company that says they're going to be electric cars. They're going to electrify everything. Well, in the third quarter, that's 3 months, they only sold 20,000 electric cars. 20,000, right? How many cars they sell overall? 674,336. We're talking about a spin the bucket there, baby. They're selling all kinds of SUVs and everything. They sold 20,000 electric cars. They're really rushing towards an electrified future, right? And here's the hilarious thing. In the third quarter, they sold 47 electric Hummers. 47, right? But they did sell 3,108 Cadillac Lyriq electric vehicles, right? Like I said, this is a spit in the bucket. They act like we're going to be the electric car company. So 674,000 cars, 20,000 of them were electric cars. To me, hey, follow the money, right? What did they sell? Gasoline and diesel vehicles, not electric cars. Hardly any. 20,000 out of 674,000 sold. Now, they did make a lot more than 20,000 vehicles that were electric. They just didn't sell them because people don't want them. Now they're really in a bind, We're going to ramp up production. Wait a second, how are we going to ramp up sales? Nobody wants the stupid things. And also, if you want to add all the figures, they sold 19 electric Blazers, 19 of them, and 18 electric Silverados. So here we go, the truth. We're all finding out that people really don't want these electric cars. And of course, their biggest seller was the Chevy Volt, right? That was their biggest seller. And that was the one they weren't even going to make anymore. But then old Mary turned around and said, uh-oh, we better continue to make them because it's the only one we're really selling any volume of. They sold like 18,000 of them. So that was their big seller. And that was the one they were going to cancel, right? Maybe it's time to depose Queen Mary, get somebody else in there that might have a better idea how to run GM. Dana Rick says, why is my Honda Del Sol sputtering intermittently? And sometimes 5-10 seconds it just starts hesitating. I got off the freeway, it's idling up and down. Sometimes when I'm in second gear it lurches. I'm thinking it's the idle air control valve. It idles up and down when you're at a stop sign. Okay, that may be the idle air control valve, or you have a vacuum leak. Check for that first, right? You're sputtering when you're going highway speed, especially when you accelerate. More often, that's a problem with either your fuel filter's clogged, which is easy to change, or your fuel pump is starting to go out. So the first thing I'd say is change the fuel filter. Could easily fix it. If not, then pressure test the fuel pump. It's probably going out, and then you can just replace it. Now, the reason I say change the fuel filter first, because if you check fuel pressure with a dirty filter, it may show low pressure. You buy an expensive $400 or $500 pump and find out it was a clogged filter. You'd wish you changed the filter before you tested the pressure. So change the filter first. And then if it's still doing it, pressure test the pump. Now, if you pressure test the pump and it's still good after all that, then you probably have dirty fuel injectors. Honda injectors last a lot more than 80,000 miles, but it's an older car and it's sat for a while. You could try some of Bernie's ATS cleaners that you can get. Bernie Albuquerque ATS cleaners, Google it, you can get it. Pour it in a gas tank, and that will clean the carbon out of the injectors. Then it may stop doing it, but it could be as simple as just a clogged fuel filter. Architect 930 says, what minivan should I buy? I'm looking for a family wagon. Should I go with the Sienna, Odyssey, or Pacifica? Right off the bat, throw the Pacifica down the toilet. Chrysler vans are rolling piles of garbage. And since Fiat and then Stellantis took over, there's more garbage than anywhere before. You got Sienna or Odyssey. Personally, I'd go Sienna all the way because Odysseys have a history of problems with engine cams, with their transmissions going out. The Toyota Siennas don't have a history of problems with hardly anything. I would definitely go Sienna. Now, if you do a lot of stop and go driving, get a hybrid one. My son bought a hybrid Sienna. He loves it. Gets great gas mileage in the 30s for a van. Stop and go traffic, that's insane, right? And he hasn't any problems with it at all. So I definitely would go that way. But I mean, if you're a Honda fan, you might want to. The newer Odysseys are better than the older ones. But still, the Siennas have a much better history over building them good over time and not having problems than the Odysseys do. So I would definitely go for the Sienna myself. Now, here's something you might not have thought of, but as EV cars get purchased, they weigh more because they got the heavy batteries, right? Many of the parking garages are not made for that much weight. And as a scientist said, and I quote, this extra load of electric cars and the changing fire safety requirements for them are all considerations, not just for new car parks, but for existing structures too. You get all this extra weight, the parking lots are not designed for it, and of course, as that English scientist was saying, they have to meet fire requirements because those hybrid batteries, when they burn, baby, burn. And of course, the worst thing is the high-rise parking garages, right? They're angled. So once this fire starts, it'll start going downhill. Burn everything downhill, right? And I suppose the heat will go uphill, burn some of the ones uphill too. But if an electric car's parked next to a gasoline car, then when that blows, gasoline will go all over and it'll start rolling downhill. And that'll start on fire, and that'll start on fire. It'll just create a gigantic catastrophe. It's bad enough that the extra weight may make these parking lots collapse. It may make them burn down even faster too. You know? Does anybody think about this stuff? Well, this English scientist obviously did, and so do I. If I was parking in a parking garage and I saw a bunch of electric cars, I would probably think about going somewhere else, maybe all the way to the top, right? Then if they start at the bottom, they'll just burn down as the fluids go down through gravity and burn everything up, right? You gotta think about these things. It isn't a magic bullet that electric cars are gonna save us all. Hey, it may burn us all down and smash all our buildings up. Not to say half of what's it gonna do to the bridges. Our bridge infrastructure in the United States is falling apart, right? I just traveled from Tennessee to Rhode Island. Man, there's some crappy bridges on the way. They're rotting away, right? You put heavy electric vehicles on them, they're gonna break even faster. Beach Queen says, my power door lock stopped working. I got a 2006 Honda. 2 months ago, driver and passenger door stopped locking or unlocking with or without the key fob. So we have to open it manually. What do you think is going to do this? It's your driver and your passenger door, right? If the other doors are working, that means the system itself is stable because the back doors work, but not the front ones. And if that's the case, 99% of the time, it's the actuator on the driver's side and on the passenger side, right? And it's a pretty expensive job. You have to buy the actuators, which normally you can only get the dealer. They have to be put into the car. You got to take the doors apart. It's a pretty expensive endeavor. Me, I'd just use them manually. I'd say the heck with that. But if you want to fix them, call up a Honda dealer, see what they charge to replace both door actuators, and then you'll probably say, I'll do them by hand now. I don't want to spend all that money. Now, you can look aftermarket. There are companies like Dorman that will often make aftermarket actuators, but it's still an expensive job, 100-something a piece, and then you got to tear the doors apart and put them in, which isn't that easy to do because they're all made anti-theft, so it's hard to get in there and work. It used to be easy, but now they got all these anti-theft things in the way, and you got to move them all out of the way when you replace the parts. Here's one I can't resist. Look, it's a self-driving car in Nashville, smashed into a building. If you look closely, you can see the little sensors and everything on top of it. Well, they didn't work too well. It smashed into the building in downtown Nashville. John Shorefide Jr. of Tennessee sent me this picture. He was there, and there it is. Smash it into the building. Yes, these self-driving cars seems to be, they may be self-driving, but they certainly are not self-correcting as it smashed into a building. Went through the big plate glass window, smashed everything up. They put billions into the self-driving technology. It is not working all that well, but they refuse to give up because they've already invested billions. They're not going to give up with those billions because they've spent it, and they're going to continue to shove this stuff down our throats. Do we really need self-driving cars? No, we really don't, you know? Think of all the people that have jobs, driving cars, Ubers, taxi cab drivers, truck drivers. What's going to happen to these people if they all lose their jobs, right? Does anybody think this through? But no, the nerds in Seattle are, oh yes, the future, self-driving cars, blah, blah, blah. When I was out in Seattle years ago, they said, Scotty, you're an old fogey. You're not in with the times. I'm like, yeah, you're not in with the times. You guys are living in La La Land, even though they were living in Seattle. Seattle's kind of like Los Angeles. Lunatics live in both cities. So the idea that these things are ready for prime time, no, they aren't. And the self-driving car smashing into a building in Nashville is more proof of they're not ready, maybe they never will be, and why we shouldn't waste all our money on this garbage. Well, here's something you may never thought of. Yale University says that 78% of the microplastics in the ocean come from car tires. To make tires last in modern design of tires, they actually use plastics in the rubber. They mix it in. 2 billion tires are made every year. They wear out, then they throw them somewhere. It isn't the tire what's left when you run out. It's while you're driving down the road, the microplastics come off, the rain washes them into the ocean. As one study in California said, and I quote, we found extremely high levels of microplastics in our stormwater. It is suspected they are from tire particles. So it's kind of ironic. Tires that we have now are a mixture of rubber, plastic, synthetic rubber, to make the tire not break down as fast and last longer, right? We want tires that last a long time. The plastic ends up getting in the ocean that way, and that's how a whole bunch of it gets there, from our car tires. You may not realize it, but microplastics are coming from your tires into the ocean, and Yale says that 78% of the microplastics is in the ocean. So, as they say, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Not the greatest thing to think about, but it's true. We also breathe them in. The microparticles the tires wearing out, you can't see them, right? But you breathe them in, so who knows what those evil tires are doing? So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.